All right, so where we left off was like 15 minutes in, and that video is not getting a lot of views, so I'm just gonna try to do it in two parts. So this is gonna be a pretty long one, just because I want to finish it for the people that are interested in it. But I also want to get to work on my next videos because, the more views I get, the more I get paid. So I gotta make, I gotta get more views than this is getting. So I'm gonna just try to do the rest of it in one part. I'm not gonna slack and just breeze through it. I'm still gonna try to make every point and everything. So don't worry about it. For the people who are interested in it, we're gonna finish it. So don't worry. Let's see. We're at 15 minutes. It just skips from 14. Oh, fuck.
Bureaucracy. The main concern of social workers is not your family,
Oh, this
not
is
you, not
interesting.
social
Hold up.
relations, education. Distract them from learning something which is constructive.
Okay, so he was talking about education and how they use it for brainwashing. Basically, like I said in the last video, they're not trying to teach you anything in school. They're basically trying to teach you to sit there all day doing things you don't want to do, listening to people who you don't want to listen to, and it's training you for the work day as an adult, spending 8 hours doing stupid, tedious nonsense and letting people have authority over you when in reality, if you weren't brainwashed, you would never accept authority from anyone except God himself. Or, you would choose to answer to who you answer to. Me personally, if I run into someone and they know more than me and they have more life experience and they can teach me, I'm happy to accept authority from them because I want to be around them. I want to learn from them. I got to be honest, I haven't met very many people in my life like that. And a lot of the ones I did meet where I thought like, wow, this guy really knows his shit. Once I get to know him, I'm like, well, he doesn't really know anything. But um, if I run into someone who can teach me, I'm always happy to learn, man. And as far as like people I worked for that I liked, I didn't mind working for them, and especially like a good skilled carpenter who I wanted to learn from. I I I would do whatever they told me to do. You know what I'm saying? Like even the crappy carpenters I worked for, if I'm working for a guy, I'm gonna be as useful as I can be because even with the dumb crappy carpenters, I was still learning from them. Sometimes I was learning what not to do. Anyway, let's keep going. It's about to get real interesting too.
Pragmatic, efficient. Instead of mathematics, physics, foreign languages, chemistry,
We
teach
already
them history of urban
we heard this in the last video. I'm gonna skip forward.
warfare. It takes organizations with fake organizations. Take away the initiative from people. Take away the responsibility from naturally established links between individuals, group of individuals, and society at large, and replace them with artificially, bureaucratically controlled bodies.
So yeah, basically, they've severed the connection between people, and now we answer to bureaucracy and police and a big system that does not give a shit about anything. It's not the truth doesn't matter. It's all just politics and bullshit, and we all just get fucked, and there's no one to complain to. There's no one takes responsibility. The Democrats blame the Republicans blame the Democrats, the House blames the Senate blames the Congress, and I personally, I don't even pay it no mind. It's all so stupid, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the more you participate in their bullshit, the sillier you are because you're wasting your time. You're just, all you're doing is, you're playing along with an illegitimate system and making it seem legitimate. Keep going.
Instead of social life and friendship between neighbors, establish social workers institutions. People who are on payroll of whom? Society? No. bureaucracy. The main concern of social workers is not your family, not you, not social relations between groups of people. The main concern is to get the paycheck.
The main concern of social workers is to get the paycheck. The main concern of the media is to get the paycheck. The main concern of the doctors, get a paycheck. Police, get a paycheck. None of them are there to do what the actual job is. The social workers are, this is why people are like, oh, why don't the homeless people go to a shelter? The people who run the shelters, the social workers, they don't fucking care. These aren't compassionate people. They don't give a shit. They're trying to get a paycheck. The doctors, all the doctors do nowadays is sell pharmaceuticals. The more pills they get people on, the more they get paid. All the people I know who go to doctors all the time, the more doctors they go to, the more doctors they have to go to. It's like, it's just this, everything's just rigged to fucking steal our money. And and it annoys me how many people participate in it. If I was a doctor, I mean, what do you, like, how rich do you have to be? You're going to be making a lot of money regardless. You might as well be a good doctor instead of a fucking pharmaceutical salesman. It's like, is everyone a piece of shit or what? Like, I don't know, man. And the other thing is with cops and shit, like my father was a fireman, and I've got most of my family are firemen. Some of them are cops though too. So, don't get me wrong. I don't like hate the police or anything, but I've got to say I would never do that for a living. I don't care what they paid me, because I feel like the police are, in a lot of ways, they're traitors. They're being paid by the enemy to do the enemy's dirty work against their own people. Like, to me, that's, I don't care what you pay me. I'm not doing that. But then again, I've lived on the street and all this shit. People are like, oh, you're a loser, you're a bum. Nah, bro. Like, I'm just not I'm not willing to sell my morals and standards for money. It's that simple, I tried to work an honest job and make honest money. It wasn't working for me. They ended up collapsing the economy on me. When I was doing a sales job, yeah, I could have made a lot of money, but I had to steal from other people. So it's like, it's not that I'm not capable of doing these things. It's that I'm not willing to do them, basically.
From the government. What will be the result of their social work doesn't really matter. They can develop all kind of concepts to show to the government and to the people that they're useful. Okay, away from the natural links, power structure. Okay, the natural bodies of administration, which are traditionally either elected by people at large or appointed by elected leaders of society, are being actively substituted by artificial bodies. The bodies of people, groups of people, whom nobody elected. Never. As a matter of fact, most of the people don't like them at all, and yet they exist. One of such group is media. Who elected them? How come they have so much power? Almost monopolistic power on your mind. They can rape your mind.
Here's how powerful the media is. They have kids growing up who want to get their dicks cut off. Okay? I mean, if if that doesn't tell you how powerful the media is, I don't know what will. And here's the other thing. All these people who work in the media, they'll do anything to keep their cush job that's keeping them living in comfort. They'll do anything. That's why, I'll tell you honestly, I'm grateful things worked out the way they did in my life, because at this point, there's no amount of money that's going to make me do things that don't sit well with my heart, that don't sit well with my soul. Nothing. I know that literally, you can take everything from me right now, and I will be making money by 9 o'clock tonight. I will walk my ass down to Clearwater Beach. I'll get a piece of cardboard. I'll get a Sharpie from somewhere. I'll make a sign. and I'll start doing portraits. I don't need to answer to anyone. I don't need to, you know, I'll tell you this much. If you go long enough with refusing to go along with the system, you're going to come up with your own system. Now, am I suggesting everyone quit their job? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, listen to your heart, listen to your soul. That's what really matters in this world. Not, you know, let's say you got some easy cush job and you're making a bunch of money. What then? What's so great about that? That gets old too. Having everything easy gets old too. Once you've banged all the chicks you want to bang, once you've done everything you want to do, then what? What are you left with? Some hollow ass job where you basically sold your soul for a little bit of money. You know what I mean? This is how they control us. Like they make us think that we have to, get all this job security and all this shit. Once you've got that, they've got you by the balls. Anyways, I don't want this video to be 5 hours long.
But who elected them? How come they have a nerve to decide what is good and what is bad for the elected by you, president, and his administration? Who the hell are they? Spiro Agnew, who was hated by the liberal left, called them a bunch of enfeebled snobs. And that's exactly what they are. They think they know. They don't. The level of mediocrity. In a big establishment like New York Times, Los Angeles Times, major television network, you don't have to be excellent journalist. You have to be exactly a mediocre journalist. That's easier to survive. There's no competition anymore.
That's a great point. And it's not just journalism, it's everything. It's like the best of our society are mediocre on their best day. When I got on the stand-up comedy scene in New York, I couldn't believe how mediocre most of the comedians were. And here's why. Because there's so little money in it nowadays and so little independence that the people who are willing to put up with it are just not that talented. There's a couple, don't get me wrong. Nate Bargatze is a fucking... He's probably the best. Sam Morrill, one of the best. Josh Rabinowitz, who should be more famous. He's a talented, funny, good comedian. I can't really think of many more, but there was a couple that stood out to me where I was like, he's got some talent. But for the most part, and look, I just was able to name 3 or 4 people out of, I'm talking thousands, okay? So, and this is New York City. This is the mecca of stand-up comedy. They're all mediocre. Everyone's just fucking mediocre in our society. Like, no one knows what the fuck they're doing. You know what I mean? Anyways, keep going. I may as well just curse my ass off on this video because YouTube is paying very little for the other part. And the other thing is hardly anyone's watching it, so I'm just going to go off on this video.
You have your good, nice income, $100,000 a year. That's it. Whether you're better or worse doesn't really matter anymore. As soon as you're smiling to the camera and do your job. That's it. No more competition. Power structure slowly is eroded by the bodies and groups of people who do not have neither qualification nor the will of people to keep them in power, and yet they do have power. Okay. Together with that, there's another process. Law enforcement, law and order organization and structure is being eroded. For the last 20, 25 years, if you see old movies and new movies, you can see that in new movies, a policeman, an officer of the United States Army looks dumb, angry, psychotic, paranoid. A criminal looks nice, kind of, well, he smokes hash and shoots the whatever drug, but basically he's a nice human being. He's creative. And he's unproductive only because society oppresses him.
Okay, this brings me to a great point. Now, he's saying they make the cops look like dimwits in the movies. Yeah, somewhat. But they also make the cops look pretty good in a lot of movies. This is back in the 80s. But here's the thing that the movies, American movies, taught me growing up. That, number one, we ruthlessly and relentlessly colonized the whole world and killed all the indigenous people, and we're so wrong, and Christopher Columbus was like a demon, and and here's another thing we learned, that black people are just misunderstood, and they've just got it so much harder than everyone, and white people have it so easy, and we misread everything and we do everything wrong. Now, can you name me one movie where the bad guy was a black guy? I can think of one movie, and that was what was it, Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone. Can you name a single movie where they didn't make black people look really, really good? One movie. Now, look, I know there's black people that watch me, and I am not trying to offend you or upset you. I love y'all, but you got to realize that the way Hollywood portrays black people has nothing to do with how black people are in reality. Am I saying all black people are bad? No, I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm not saying they're all good. Let me tell you something. When I first moved to Florida, because I come from Long Island in like the 90s, where it was all Irish and Italian. I didn't know any black people. If any black people were in our neighborhood and we were younger, we were suspicious of it. That's just how it was in New York on Long Island at that time. There was no black people around. So when I came to Florida, they're literally busing black people from Greenwood and Clearwater all the way up to Palm Harbor Middle School for some reason. Hundreds of black people. They're not zoned for that school, but for whatever reason, they're bringing them there. And here's the thing. I didn't know black people, so it was like a culture shock for me. But let me tell you something. All of a sudden, I had like black people, like this one dude trying to steal from me and all this shit. I'm like, what the fuck? My parents raised me to be like extra nice to black people because everything was been so bad for them. And here they are treating me like shit. You know what I mean? So I said, fuck what my parents are teaching me and fuck what the movies are telling me. I'm going to deal with these people the way they're dealing with me. I'm not having it. But another thing that shocked me was how a lot of the white people in my middle school and high school, they would just let the black people jump them. None of the white people would ever jump in for the other white people. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, what's wrong with y'all motherfuckers? If this was happening to me and my friends in New York when we were younger, we would have been going to war, bro. But everyone was just so mentally defeated in Florida that they were so integrated and brainwashed that they wouldn't even stand up for themselves. So I stopped even trying. I was like, why don't y'all fucking jump in for each other? Like, what the So I stopped even trying because everyone was just like, duh. So I was like, well, whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna let anyone just slap me around, Fortunately, nobody really tried, but when I got older, they did. But I mean, it's just a perfect example of their brainwashing us into thinking that, you know, they're trying to make you think a certain thing that doesn't match up with reality. So my advice is stop listening to the TV and the media and whatever everyone thinks, and deal with what's happening in reality. If somebody's acting like a piece of shit towards you, don't fucking take it. I don't care if you're supposed to feel guilty or whatever. And that goes the same with black people. If white people are being disrespectful to you and trying to steal from you and treat you like shit, fucking don't take it from them. But, stop worrying about what's politically correct and shit and start dealing with what's actually true and what's actually happening right in front of your face. This video is going to end up being like 5 hours long, but I'm posting it anyway because fuck it.
Whereby a general of Pentagon is always, by definition, a war maniac. A policeman is a pig, rude policeman. He abuses his power. A generalization like that. The hatred, the mistrust to the people who are supposed to protect you and enforce law and order. Moral relativity. The Angelo Buono process lasted 2 years in Los Angeles. Relativity. The Angelo Buono process lasted 2 years in Los Angeles. And yet there are still some lawyers who say, look, He's a nice character, as a matter of fact. There was some witness who said, also a criminal, who said, well, he's a nice guy. I asked him one day to burn a house of my enemy, and he wouldn't do it. He's a nice fella. Erosion. A slow substitution of basic moral principles, whereby a criminal is not a criminal, actually. He's a defendant. Even if his guilt is proven, there is still a doubt to kill or not to kill, to be or not to be.
I mean, basically, he's just saying how movies have brainwashed us. Now, here's another thing. Have you ever seen a movie where the gay guy was a bad guy or where the trans was a bad guy? Have you ever seen that? Can you name one time where that happened? No. The bad guy is always a white guy. Like, and do you think that's on accident? You know what I mean? Do you really think that every single movie, regardless of the time in history, has the white people as the bad guys and the black people as the good guys and the gay people as the good guys? And have you ever noticed, here's another thing, the worst of the worst, the most evil, terrible people in every movie is always some sort of Nazi or a skinhead. Now, why do you think that is, considering that America was founded and created by white Christian men? Why do you think that all of a sudden, within the last 30, 40 years, every single movie and every single commercial and every single TV show is trying to paint this narrative subversively that white people are the bad guys and everyone else is the good guys? Why do you think that is? I'll tell you why that is. Because the reality is that we are the biggest threat to their power. You can say I'm wrong, you can say I'm politically incorrect. That's the reality of it. So, because here's the thing. If we decided collectively, white men in particular, to take over this country, nobody could stop us. And I mean fucking nobody. It would take literally the rest of the world to team up on us. And even then, the war, it would be a guerrilla war fought for decades. And we still probably wouldn't lose because we're the fucking best at war. And I don't care what your opinion is on that. That's the reality of it. I mean, look at history. They've even tried to change and bullshit history. But the reality of it is, if you look at wars that have happened in Africa and other places, yeah, nobody's gonna beat us, bro. So that's why they've got to, brainwash us into not even fighting, because they can't win in a war with us. Am I advocating for war with the government? No, that's the last thing I want, because it's, like he said, that's the dumbest way to win a conflict is with violence. It's the dumbest way. So I'm not advocating for that. But the reality is, at best, they'd get a stalemate that went on for 50 years. You think Afghanistan was hard to beat? You know what I'm saying? Look at the ingenuity of the IRA. I mean, look. They wouldn't beat us, bro. The best they could do would be a stalemate that went on and on and on and on and just consumed all their money and resources. This country, the terrain, they'd never be able to stop us unless they started nuking us, which they're not going to do in their own country. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent.
Thou shalt not kill, yes. But this line may not necessarily be applicable to a murderer. Thou shalt not murder. That should be the presumption, not that thou shalt not kill. Okay, labor relations. At this stage, within 15 to 20 years, we destroy the traditionally established links of bargaining between employer and employee. The classical Marxist-Leninist theory of natural exchange of goods.
And there's only certain things I'm willing to say on YouTube. If you want to know what I really think, go on my Patreon. So he's talking about labor unions now and how basically We think they're for us, but they are not. And he's going to explain it.
Person A has 5 sacks of grain and person B has 5 pairs of shoes. And the natural exchange without money is when they bargain between each other. And only with the introduction of the third force, C, an entirely third foreign stranger who says, no, don't give him 5 sacks of grain, give it to me, and you give me your 5 pairs of shoes, and I will distribute it accordingly. So the economy will go. This is the death of natural exchange, death of natural bargaining. Well, trade unions were established 100 years ago. The objective was to improve working conditions and to protect the rights of workers from those employers who were abusing their right because they had more money. Objectively, at that time, initially, the trade union movement did work. What we see now is that the bargaining process is no longer resulting in the compromise, which is leading objectively to betterment of working conditions and increase of salary. What we see is that after each prolonged strike, the workers lose. Even if they have 10% increase of their salaries, they cannot catch up due to inflation and due to missed time.
And here's another thing. That job I had at Belmont was a union job. Here I am thinking, oh, I'm set for life. I got a union job. But right before I got hired, that union set it up to where all the people who have been working for that union for the last 10, 20 years got a huge raise. But all the people who are about to get hired, they're going to get shit money for the first 5, 10 years of them working there. That was another reason. All signs from God were telling me, quit this fucking job. The union had just fucked us all the guys who had just started working, so they can get big, huge paychecks. Even though they were already getting big, huge paychecks, they wanted bigger and huger ones. And so they sacrificed all the new people coming up. And what they got in return for that was all the intelligent and cool and fun people fucking quit on them. And now I'd love to see the crop of people they got working at Belmont. I guarantee it's a bunch of fucking idiots. That's my guess, because you really got to take it in the ass to take that job at this point. Like, for the first 5, 10 years of you working there, they're going to pay you shit, and you're going to be broke. So, like, you know, fuck all that. So, yeah, the union screwed me. And then on top of that, look, the union's a bunch of fucking politicians, basically. It's a bunch of politicians with no real money, power, or intelligence. So they've got to swindle it out of all the people in the union. You know what I mean? They're the scum of the fucking earth. They're as bad as the politicians, if not worse, because they're just as dishonest for way less money and way less power. You know what I mean? So, fuck the unions. I had the union job, and yeah, my job was easy, sure. If you want to sit around all day staring at your phone and making a little bit of money and working a little bit here and there, is that how you want to spend your life? That's not how I wanted to spend my life. I felt like it was a waste of my fucking time, you know? And they weren't even paying me a lot for it. It's like, nah, my life is worth more than this, bro. And then on top of that, the shit food, the food situation at Belmont was the 2 cafeterias in Belmont were owned by the same guy. So he was using the most factory farmed, poisonous, disgusting, you know, hormone injected food that you could imagine. I was like, I'm not sacrificing my health or my life for a little bit of money and a little bit of job security. I was like, fuck it.
More than that, millions of people suffer from that strike because economy now is interdependent. It's intertwined like one body. If previously steel workers, say 100 years ago, could strike and nobody would suffer, now it's impossible anymore. If a garbage collector strikes today, the rest of the multi-million city is stinking. I mean, there's no more service. In Quebec, for example, we had the electricians who were on strike in the middle of winter. You can freeze your bottom, and they still were on strike. Did they catch up with the salary? No, they lost. Who benefited? The leaders of trade unions. What is the motivation for strike? Improving of a workers' condition? No, obviously it's not. Then what is it? Ideology. To prove to these capitalists. And the obedient horde of workers, like sheep, follow these people. And they cannot disobey. Why? Because if they do, you know what happens to them. Pickets, murders, shooting truck drivers by picketers. In Montreal, for example, I saw with my own eyes when I was correspondent of CBC International, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, when the workers of aircraft factory destroyed computers and the equipment in the factory. And the administration employed strike breakers. Their cars were turned upside down and burned.
And if you know anything about the mobs in New York, you know that they control the unions. So here's how this works. And I don't know if they still do this, but the mafia will have some guy that they want to have a weekly paycheck. So they'll get him in with the union. Someone at the union just clocks him in every day. He gets this big fat ass check. Then, if the people from the union have a problem with the workers, they have the mob guys come and threaten them and break their fucking fingers and do whatever. So, you know, those unions, it's bullshit. They're not doing you no favor, bro. So, I mean, I tell you honestly, my job at Belmont, yeah, it was easy, but you're just owned, you know? And then I was working with the carpenter union guys at Belmont, and I was realizing, like, I guess they were kind of just trying to inch me toward the carpenter union, which is a powerful union in New York, and I would have been making a lot of money. But to be totally honest, I didn't like them. I didn't like the way they were acting. I didn't like how they were kind of, in a very subtle way, trying to tell me, like, well, if we like you, we're going to set you up for life. And, you know, I felt like saying to him, you can outright just say it to me, bro, and you can go fuck yourself because I don't give a fuck about you or this job. You know what I mean? I was pretty much done at that point. But 10 years earlier, they would have had me doing anything to get into the carpenter union in New York. You know what I mean? But by the time they were finally kind of, you know, giving me an opportunity for that, I didn't even fucking want it. And I didn't even like, you know, I just didn't like the whole atmosphere of the whole thing. Like I said, they're trying to hold it over your head the whole time, like, oh, we're about to make your whole life great and this and that. Yeah, sure, all I gotta do is be your lackey for the rest of my life. Like, fuck you, you know? Anyways, I'll keep going. This is going to be some video. Like, I'm actually kind of glad the last one kind of bombed because now I can just go off and I don't give a fuck. And whoever sees this are the people who probably agree with me anyway. And if not, whatever. We can argue in the comments. I don't got nothing against nobody. And I believe what I believe. But I'm willing to debate anything. If I'm wrong about anything, I want to be corrected. So, let's keep going.